Welcome to Nick on Knicks. It's your boy N.I.C. and joining us today, a very special guest and one of the first guys with a real following to feature me on his channel. You can catch him talking everything Mets and as much Knicks as he can fit in over on his channel, CPNY Sports. He was at the game last night in the nation's capital, so that makes him the first official road correspondent here on Nick on Knicks. My guy, CP, what's good, brother? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, Nick. I appreciate you so much for having me on. I love the shows that you do, the weekly recaps, the post game day afters. It's awesome. I was at the game yesterday. It was electric. We call it, New York Knicks South or however you want to say that. You know what I mean? Knicks fans travel well, man. I was one of those guys in attendance, and it was a good time. Deuce shooting the 3-pointers. You always heard Deuce. Everybody was lively, man. It was awesome. A good environment.
At this point, the Deuce Chant is something that you hear everywhere that you go. I'm not in the, New York, New Jersey area anymore. I'm out in Phoenix. I go see them when they come out here and we shut down that stadium. It seems definitely up and down the Eastern Seaboard, but really across the country, other than like the Lakers. At this point, I heard somebody put up a chat the other day. Somebody put up a post, I think it was on X, and it said something about how the Knicks are basically subsidizing the entire NBA fan base right now.
It's literally crazy, man. MSG South, Orlando, DC, Atlanta. I mean, there's so many. Miami, even of all places, too. I
Like
mean, you are not
Charlotte.
lying. And it's a great time to be a Knicks fan, man. People love this team. They've been waiting for so long to just have something to cheer for. And guess what? Karl Anthony Towns, JB, and the boys, Josh Hart, they're giving us something to cheer about, man.
Oh man, so much to dig into. And we are riding on a high right now. 8 straight games for our Knickerbockers. They are taking care of business. We all look at this soft spot of the schedule and said, hey, when we get here, this is exactly what we need to do. And they have followed through with that. It hasn't always been the easiest. We've had to go to OT against a team with 5 wins just a couple games ago, but that's what good teams do. They figure out a way to get a dub, and that's what our Knicks have done. And I mean, talk to me, man. When we were at 5-6, were you one of those people that was really worried and wondering about this team's identity, or did you always have faith that Tom Thibodeau and the Knicks were going to figure it out?
You know me, man. I always had that worry in the back of my mind. I'm not gonna lie. I've always entrusted in everything that Tom Thibodeau does and what this team does. Leon Rose, it starts from the top. I've been very adamant about that, as have you. We are big Leon Rose and Tom Thibodeau supporters. But I was a little bit worried, and especially with the lack of size on this team, with the lack of Mitchell Robinson or any other big man that they might acquire at the trade deadline here upcoming. In addition to Karl Anthony Towns, I was worried about the size, and I wasn't really worried about the gelling aspect of it. And that's what a lot of Knicks fans seem to be worried about. It's like, after a huge trade, Julius Randle's gone, Devo is gone. How is Karl Anthony Towns going to gel with these guys, these Villanova boys? And guess what? It has been nothing short of spectacular. As we're approaching 30 games in, just the transformation of this team after games 5 and 6. So I will say I was a blend. I was the Knicks fan that was a blend of the two. A little bit worried, just trying to figure out how the Knicks were going to sort of overcome some of the lack of size outside of Karl Anthony Towns. But you know what? You got to have trust and faith in Tom Thibodeau, and he's got these guys looking good out there on that court, man. They're just fast breaks. The passes, everything, the assist totals, 30 plus assists per game. It seems like almost every night. I mean, the ball movement's spectacular, man. I love what I'm seeing.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you echo the sentiments of lots of Knicks fans. Definitely look down in the description for a link to CP's page. If you are a Mets fan, it is an absolute must. Him and talking Mets with Rob are over there. They're breaking news. They're talking about the hot stove. They're giving all the different information that you might need and the hottest takes. So definitely check them out. I come off the bench every once in a while over there. But yeah, man. And if you are in here, definitely comment. Let us know how you're feeling about these Knicks. We've won 8 straight. We're now at 23-10. I got actually the wrong number there. I got 22-10. I just noticed that we're 23-10 now. Yeah, it was late night, man. It was late night getting this ready yesterday. But hey, man, we're out here and we feel like, at this point, this Knicks team is starting to gel. And when you ask me, when you really look at it, the whole thing is switched with Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges, as he has started to play that point of attack defense that we expect, get into the passing lanes, bother shots. And I'm telling you, at some point, there's going to be a story in The Athletic. It'll probably be like a Fred Katz or something like that about during that time where we had one game in 8 days where somebody sat down with Mikal, they showed him some tape, and they were like, dude, this is not the defender that we know you to be. And now all of a sudden he's navigating screens at a much higher level. Shout to John Macri over on Knicks Film School. He's always talking about screen navigation, and he's doing that at a much bigger level. He's just much more active. And then the offense has obviously followed with that. Mikal Bridges has been one of the best players, not on the Knicks, but in the NBA during the entire month of December. Both sides of the ball, the two-way threat that we'd like to see. Talk to me about Bridges. Were you pushing the panic button with him? And how are you feeling about what we've seen from him in this past month?
Come on, man. You know, it's not a Knicks fandom without pressing the panic button just a little bit. Yeah, man, I was worried about Mikal Bridges. I mean, honestly, I couldn't care less about the pick compensation that we gave up to acquire him. I could care less about that. I was just worried about how he was going to fit in as that either tertiary option or the fourth option, whether you want to say he's ahead or behind OG Anunoby, who we need to get to because that man took 11 threes last night. And that is something that I love to see, just the
Took the
aggression.
elbow strap off. Took the elbow strap off.
The elbow strap off, exactly, absolutely, in the second half, and he was lighting it up. But listen, yeah, Mikal Bridges, it definitely does start with him. Wingstop, as they like to call it. There was some points last night where in the first half they seemed to be just a little bit slow. Not with the rotations, but you know, I guess when they kick it out, Wizards kicked it out to the corner a little bit, getting beat off the dribble a little bit. That was something that I saw Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby kind of struggle with on a couple of possessions. But after that, they caught their footing, they got into the right spots, and they adjusted there quickly. I think Mikal Bridges has done a great job just adjusting in general because of all the guys that it was going to take to sort of see a little bit more progressions in this season in terms of slow starts. He was going to be the one coming over and adjusting to this new life of the New York Knicks and not being that primary option that he was out in Brooklyn. And now how is he going to, you know, he's played with the guys before, he's played with Josh Hart before, he's played with JB before, but how is he going to adjust in terms of being that off-ball sort of guy? And the catch and shoot, the shooting form, everything, what started off seemingly slow is now just taken over, and him getting right both offensively and defensively has taken this Knicks team, as we've seen in this last stretch of games, in this 8-game winning streak, and even before then, to a whole different level, Nick. And I'm really happy because guess what? Playing in this New York market, and I'm not saying these players read into what people are saying on social media at all, but you know what? It kind of it gets up there sometimes, right? Whatever
Absolutely.
the newspaper says, you know, you go on X, these guys have social media accounts, they're seeing what's being said about them. It can get a little bit overbearing. So I'm super happy and proud Mikal Bridges is fitting right in, just like we know he would, man.
I think one of the things that we lose sight of because we think these guys are just like robots and we're like, oh, they play a game and they should be fine and they should never have any sort of issues. Think about how much Mikal Bridges' role has changed in just the last few years. Going from Phoenix, then to Brooklyn, then coming here. It's really 3 different roles you're asking this guy to play. And yes, there was an adjustment period. And he came over, he was trying his best to fit in, but now you see that he realizes, like, first and foremost, like, I need to be a little bit more aggressive as far as like point of attack. Like when I have the ball on offense, same thing that was going on defense. His point of attack on offense has been a lot better too, where he gets into the lane and he can go off either foot and hit that little fadeaway, especially with that high release. And it's fantastic. It goes in. I feel like he never misses that shot. And that was on full display, obviously, on Christmas morning. But the thing that we see from Bridges is that the confidence is building, the defense is growing, and then we're also seeing a player that just complements the rest of this team so well. His ability to cut off ball, both he and OG are fantastic at that. Now that we have Cat spacing out the floor, JB is picking up his assist numbers. Josh Hart does absolutely everything. And what you see is the best starting lineup in the NBA. I do agree that yesterday at the beginning of that game, the Knicks started off, they were definitely missing some easy shots. They missed a couple layups, but then I thought one of the plays early on where, Brunson gets in, he feels like he gets fouled, Bridges follows it up, dunks it with two hands. At that point, it was just like, all right, let's not, get down by 12 or 14 or something like that right now. And the Wizards, as much as they are supposed to not be a good team, and their record definitely reflects that, when it comes to playing against the Knicks, and when it comes to these last two games, what I'm seeing with my eye test, pretty scrappy, got some rangy guys, a couple guys that can shoot. I thought, honestly, that game yesterday really turned when Kyle Kuzma all of a sudden decided that, he was back after his absence and he was going to get it going, and he did not get it going at all. But yeah, man, I think that Bridges is definitely showing what he can be, but I'm really excited for what it can continue to mean in the future, having another player who can be that effective from the mid-range, and especially at the end of games, not having to rely on JB being the only person that can get his own shot in that efficient, 15 to 8 foot range.
I mean, you said it. And also guys that can just catch and shoot the basketball. Last year was a lot of DiVincenzo doing that. And now JB, the assist totals. I mean, that was never really a question and never a concern for me, but I know it was for a lot of Knicks fans. Now he has every weapon imaginable on the catch and shoot to just kick it out to if three guys crash in the paint. You got
including
Bridges
Josh Hart.
and Josh Hart too. And that's what I was going to say about last night was that I was sitting there in the stands. I was like, dude, is it going to be one of these games where we cannot buy a three because this is not what I came here to watch? And sure enough, who was the guy that scored what? He at least scored maybe like 8 straight points for the Knicks, or
he had 8 straight points at one point. So we were 1 of 11 at that point from three,
right,
and then Josh Hart made 3 straight threes
in a row. And listen, this guy, it's not a question about if he can shoot the basketball. It's just when he's going to shoot the basketball and understand that he has a beautiful shot. He just needs to stop passing it up, to be honest with you. And, I love the selflessness because he was doing it all, man. Fast break transitions, the passing game from him on the 2-on-1s that they were getting too. And that's something that the Knicks really did last night, is take advantage of a younger Wizards team. They are scrappy. Anytime the New York Knicks come into an opposing building, that opposing team is going to be energized. That's who the Knicks are, and that's what they bring to the table in terms of just the environment level and the excitement level. But they did a good job because the Wizards were turning the basketball over. I think it was like 13 turnovers or something like that for the Wizards, and they were just capitalizing on the fast break opportunities. And Josh Hart, even Precious Achua, was it like Point Precious or something like that? He was trying to take up that ball a couple times.
I saw him wave off JB at one point and start to dribble the ball up.
Oh, I love it, man.
And feeling himself after that monster slam.
Exactly. And the corner threes with Precious too. He's coming into form with the 3-point ball as well. So I love to see it, man. These guys, like, you can tell just the cohesiveness and the comfortability amongst all of them. They almost know where they are going to be, like where each other is going to be and the spot that they're going to hit at all times. Like Karl-Anthony Towns, as soon as he gets the ball, free throw line extended, boom, there's a cutter. Whether it's Deuce, whether it's Mikal, it's just beautiful basketball to watch. And honestly, these guys are doing it and they're executing. But Tom Thibodeau, he's getting these guys right. I have no doubt in my mind that a lot of this is being done in practice as well under the watch of Tom Thibodeau.
Absolutely. Shout to my guy Keith Watkins. He's a huge supporter. He is a Knicks, Mets, and Jets fan. He's down in ATL. He's in enemy ground, but he's always out here showing love. And then also shout to Darlene Bryant. Salute, guys. Salute to you as well, Darlene. Thank you for the support. And yeah, if you're in the chat, definitely talk to me about how you're feeling about these Knicks. If you have any questions for CP and I, definitely let us know. But Josh Hart, let's take a second and spend a little bit of time on him, because first of all, it's the confidence in the shot, but it's the fact that, we're now up to 3.5 threes a game now.
Yep.
I think that that's huge for Josh Hart to be able to step into it confidently. And yesterday, in a time where we're not looking great and things are struggling a little bit, Josh Hart is now able to get the offense going. Where, if you tell me before that Josh Hart was going to be the guy to start shooting the threes to get us out of a funk, I would tell you that was never going to be the case. But then also, he continues to do everything on the floor. And I thought the play that epitomized that was when he runs in, he slaps away a rebound, he toe taps on the baseline to be able to stay in bounds with his quarterback This is a sore subject for you. I know you're a Giants fan. You got to deal with this guy for the next decade, probably. But his quarterback, JD, Jalen Daniels is right there. And, I just think that Josh Hart, his spirit and the way that he plays this game, there couldn't be a more perfect guy to wear that number in that jersey. And I think that even his hijinks and whatnot, I think are so important to the overall team. He keeps everybody light. He keeps everybody fresh. And he's one of the few guys that I see that sometimes when we're bullshitting, I see him challenge guys like, come on, man, what are we doing? Like, and I think that's important as well. So I think he has just been such a perfect fit. I don't know where the Cam Hive is now. They gotta be good. Please, if there is anybody in the chat, if there's anybody watching this on the replay, gang, and you still feel like we shouldn't have gotten rid of Cam Reddish, please let me know. I don't think that exists at all. But yeah, man, I just feel like this Knicks team, we're coming together. And as my guy Keith is saying right now, we have a tougher schedule ahead this month. Luckily, we have most of them at home. We will see how we stack up by February. And I think that's a very good point because, we just had our soft spot. Now, for the rest of the year, technically, as it sits right now, toughest strength of schedule for the rest of the season. Obviously, that could change a lot depending on what other teams do in their records and whatnot. Cleveland is coming into a tough part of their schedule as well, and so is Boston. So all the teams up at the top, they're going to see, and we're going to see, who rises out of those three. But I think that, stacking wins right now, I mean, it kills me when sometimes people want to complain about how we win, and it's like, stack 8 straight, get those. Now we go back, we play some of these tough games. We play a lot of them at home where we know, hey, it's the Knicks have been pretty good at home these last couple of years, but at the end of the day, everybody brings their best when they come to the Garden. How do you feel about our ability to finish in that 1, 2, or 3? And do you really think it matters that much?
I think it matters to a certain extent. I don't think it matters to the players because, again, like when you talk about the opponents, I mean, the Knicks, I don't think that they care. Like these group of guys, I don't think that they care at all who's, across from them. You know what I mean? It could be Cleveland, it could be Boston. They're still carrying that same energy. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns exudes that every single game. This guy is repping New York on the front of his chest, and he loves it every minute of it. So I don't think that they care. It's really us fans who care. And I think that they're going to be just fine in January, unlike the New York Rangers, who went through an abysmal stretch in December, and they're a sore topic as well.
Ugh.
But listen, man, going back to the conversation of Josh Hart, yeah, man. When you talk about, and I know that you were kind of talking me off that ledge a couple of weeks ago, kind of earlier in the season, in that if we're going to have Karl Anthony Towns and play Josh Hart at the 4, is that the advantage of that is playing 4 out, 1 in, or 5 out, nobody in, and all 5 of the guys on the court can shoot the 3 ball. And that's something that Josh Hart is fitting into perfectly because, couple years ago in the playoffs, Josh Hart couldn't buy a 3 against the Miami Heat, right? And so this guy has an outside shot. So if you have 5 shooters on the court at all times, that's like Boston Celtics basketball right there, 2.0, which is really what the goal was, I'm assuming, in bringing Cat over in the first place. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. The hustle plays too that go unnoticed. I mean, there's one play specifically in the first half yesterday where Josh Hart just goes crashing into one of the Wizards players into the front row. He doesn't care, man. He puts his body on the line. But it's a good point by Keith, absolutely, in terms of the tougher schedule. I have no doubt in my mind that the Knicks are going to stack up well, regardless of who the opponent is. I think it's Boston and then it's the Knicks because guess what? I told you this a couple of weeks ago. You kind of were hesitant to agree with me, but I'm going to stand by it is that I do not believe in the Cleveland Cavaliers one bit. I think they're fraudulent, and I think we'll see that they're fraudulent, and especially as we get closer to playoff time. But in this month of January, for me, all eyes are on what Mitchell Robinson's situation is going to be. I need this guy back sooner rather than later. And at this point, I don't know if you've been hearing, this is such a Knicks fan base, Knicks Twitter thing to do, but Jonas Valanciunas kind of cooked us last night. Now all of a sudden he's the next New York Knick via trade. So listen, man, I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't know if they're going to let Mitchell Robinson ride on the bench and be that sort of backup to Karl-Anthony Towns in the second unit. That's probably where I would stick him in terms of this rotation right now. When he comes back, hopefully it's sooner rather than later. Hopefully it's in the month of January, because it just seems like his timeline is being extended and extended and extended, which I don't like to hear. But if the Knicks have to go out there and make a trade, whether it's a guy like Nick Richards, whether it's Valanciunas, I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm not going to take this guy on our team, because he did look pretty good last night. I really want to know who's going to be running the backup center role for the New York Knicks, because Precious, he's filled in fantastic. And he definitely provides that sort of energy as well. Talk about another guy that came back on a 1-year deal and just like loves New York. He loves the Knicks. I mean, he's from New York. Just exudes that New York energy. I want to see what the Knicks are going to do up until the trade deadline to address the big man situation behind Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't think it's next to him. I was convinced that was going to be next to Karl-Anthony Towns a couple weeks ago, but I'm changing my tune on that. You know what? Josh Hart's good in my book. He can stay right there at the 4.
I love Josh Hart at the 4. I love Josh Hart in that first, and it's really like, is OG the 4 and Josh Hart's the 2, or the 3 of those are almost interchangeable. And I love that also for the ability to switch on defense, which the Knicks are doing more of. At the beginning of the year, we were doing more of staying home and doing drop coverage. We're playing a little bit more diverse coverage when it comes to how we attack the pick and roll, which I think is very important. But then also, I think that Josh Hart, and I think I put this on like Frank Barrett's page yesterday, where we were talking about the fact that Josh Hart, when he is initiating on offense, he's so good at it because first and foremost, he's always has the ability to be able to attack the rim. And if you take the rim protector from the other team and put them on him because that person can't chase cat around, now that person is pulled away from the rim. He gets one step on him, and we know about his finishing. It's fantastic. He's becoming a 3-level scorer because he's getting more confident in taking that little mid-range shot. And as we've already detailed, the three-pointer is going down with some regularity too. So I think all of those are huge advantages of having the current starting lineup stay as constructed. Now, when it comes to Valanciunas, so I don't know. Did you see the picture of him talking to Leon before the game? That's getting around.
See that. I saw how he was talking with the guys after the game, though. They looked pretty comfortable and they looked like they were, scheming something up, but I didn't see that with Leon.
So yeah, before the game during warmups, there's a picture of him talking to Leon and they're smiling and whatnot. But this is the thing about Valanciunas. If you bring in a guy like him, you're not giving up Mitch for him. No way. No way. Okay. So you can't give up Mitch for him. So that means what I think is he's totally insurance, because what you really hope is that Mitch comes back. He gives you like 15 strong minutes a game. You're able to ease him back in. And then, hey, you're just hoping for everybody to be healthy, and Cat and 15 minutes of Mitch sounds fantastic. However that works out exactly. I think there will be sometimes we're on the floor together, sometimes, but not too often though, as we've said before. But though we have seen a lot of Precious and Cat on the floor, but Precious can hit that corner 3, as we've seen. He's now 4 of 11 for 3 since he's come back. Clearly something that he worked on, during this offseason and probably while he was injured as well. Valanciunas, the thing about it is, okay, so you're playing against Boston. He can't see the floor against Boston. He can't be on the floor at all, ever. Okay, so if he's not on the floor at all versus Boston, I just don't see giving up huge assets for him. And personally, for me, I would be much more interested in picking up a scoring guard, a guy who can come in and be a 6-man and give you buckets, especially with what we've seen with this slump from Deuce lately. These last 11 games, he's shooting like below 35% from the field and from 3. If that's going to be the case, then a guy like Jordan Clarkson or something like that looks a lot more attractive to me than necessarily a backup center, because I do think that that's the one thing that could hold us back a little bit, is the fact that our scoring punch and our bench play is some of the worst in the league. It's the worst in the league, actually. And as my guy Keith has said once again, Tibbs played our guys a lot of minutes so far trying to gel for the postseason. The great teams have been together for 3 seasons or more. We have less than half a season. We'll be fine. I do believe some of Tibbs playing guys some extra minutes has been due to that. I think a lot of it also has to do with we've had some rotation players injured, and he doesn't trust guys when it comes to those guard backups. You can see Campaign hasn't played the second half of the last 4 games. Campaign, when he's getting it going, it's great. But that slingshot bullshit from 3 feet behind the line, when it's missing, don't feel great at all. And Tibbs is like, So I see if we could get another wing guard, maybe a guy who can handle the ball a little bit, who Tibbs trusts, I think that's where we go. And that will, you can see Shamet coming back is already cutting the Campaign's minutes. And Deuce, if he's not getting it done, if he's not getting buckets, and maybe this is something to do with that sore knee he was dealing with, at the end of the day, we need production. If a guy like Jordan Clarkson is sitting right there, Deuce, if you're not getting it done, he's going to give us, some good minutes. And this guy's going to be able to score. And Darlene Bryant, I don't want to give up Deuce at all. There's no way I want to give up Deuce. To me, Deuce is almost untradeable just due to his contract. If you're going to need quality guys coming off the bench, he signed a 3-year, $13 million extension. You can't get rid of that guy because, especially with how much we pay some of our top guys, we're going to need a contract like Deuce from a backup player. So I don't see him going anywhere. But if he is not getting it done, that 25 to 28 minutes might be more 20 to 22.
Yeah, I agree. And I saw a lot of the Jordan Clarkson, not rumors, but just pure speculation about how that could fit into the bench unit. But I mean, the Valanciunas topic it's an interesting one because you're right. He cannot see the floor against Boston. So at that point, will we just write her out with Mitch at that point, right? But if you package one of their other guys, I mean, the Champagny guy, is that how do you pronounce his name? And that guy can score off the bench for the New York Knicks.
Champagny is a guy that I would like to have be sitting on my bench. Both them Champagny brothers kind of gave it to us back to back with the over in San Antonio and on Washington. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I mean, maybe a package deal right there. I don't think it's going to take a lot from the Wizards, to be honest, because it seems like they have their core nucleus, right? I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Listen, if I'm them and I'm trying to give up these guys, I'm trying to get, fair market value or the best value I can. And that's the thing. I don't, Deuce or Mitch in that, I automatically don't start feeling so great about it. So to me, it's got to be an addition type thing. Now, if we could get, another player on that team that I look at, a guy like Brogdon. Brogdon to me as like your 6-man. Listen, if we could give up right now, if we could give up Campaign, Sims, and a pick for Brogdon, done.
Yeah.
Done. And let me have Brogdon as my combo guard off the bench. And, sometimes when certain guys have it going, he might not see. But now, Campaign's gone. Landry Shamet, he's already eaten up all his minutes anyway. And Brogdon, to me, is perfect. And there's been rumors around Brogdon for, the last few years around the trade deadline. So a Brogdon, a Clarkson, a guy like that, to me, I think is what we're missing a little bit more than a backup center.
I know the answer to this already, and I'm just trying to, I guess, spark this conversation. I think the contract would probably just be a no-go anyways with what he signed, but the guy came off the bench for them yesterday. I mean, Kuzma, what do you think? I know you're going to say no, huh?
Just the absolutely not. Man. I mean, dude, from everything, Kuzma came in that game yesterday, starts throwing up air balls and shit. He's missing 2 free throws. He to me seems like he just takes the game just so unseriously. And I'm telling you, when he was on the Lakers, I was like, this kid is a player. He's 6'10". You didn't listen to the game, but both Alan Hahn and Breen were talking about the fact that he's taller than you think when you see him play. When you get next to him, you're like, this guy's legitimate 6'10", and he can shoot, but yet he has never been able to become anything close to somewhat of a serious player that anybody's worried about since he's been in the NBA. He's now becoming oft injured. Just absolutely, and he's got the contract.
Yeah.
I don't even think we could, honestly, with the contract. I think we'd probably get into the second apron if we'd have to give up like Mitch, and I don't even know who we'd have to match to be able to, because I'm pretty sure he's making at least 20. But at the end of the day, dog, no, he's not built like us. He's just not. And speaking of people,
I just had to hear you say it, Nick. I just had to hear you say it.
Yeah, you baited me there. you got the rant you were looking for. But speaking of people and what they are built for, somebody that we have touched on a few times, we got to stop and we got to give him a little bit of love. This man last night, for the second game in a row, gets overshadowed with a 30-10 performance. Karl Anthony Towns, 32 points, 13 rebounds, some absolutely voracious dunks. That man took that kid Sar and he made Sar hold his pocket last night. Okay, he took that young boy and was like, "Hey man, let me show you something real quick." Valanciunas did give him some issues. Valanciunas is a tough guy. He's a strong guy. Clearly, he's not a rim protector. But Karl Anthony Towns, I thought, was holding his weight when it came to Valanciunas. A lot of that time where he was getting off was when he was getting guarded by Precious. Precious was just overmatched. He's too small for Valanciunas. But Sar, especially in that third and fourth quarter, man, Karl Anthony Towns running the floor. He is getting reverses off. He's throwing it down with regularity. He's jumping out and stealing passes and going all the way down the floor for breakaway dunks. Kat has been an absolute revelation. It's been a little while since you and I've talked, Knicks. We both were Julius guys. We both didn't like the trade initially, but now looking at it, we both have to say that you must trust in Leon, and it is good to be wrong because Karl Anthony Towns, he is built for New York. The big bodega, the big purr. Yo, man, talk to me about Cat, man. How you feeling about Karl Anthony Towns?
Oh my gosh, man. I gotta swallow my pride and just say I was absolutely wrong. I was absolutely wrong. I mean, some fans, I get, it's not easy for them to just say that they were wrong. It's not easy to say we can trust in this front office, but we got a front office now that we can and should trust. They know what's going on, right? And you talk about the production and also just the other factor of like how they're gelling as a team. These guys are boys, man, and it shows on the court, and it's awesome. But yeah, they had nothing on Cat. It seems like on a nightly basis, like the opposing center's got nothing on him. He was a little bit also undersized against Valanciunas. Valanciunas is a big dude, so it's really hard to guard that guy. But you know what? Cat held his own. But yeah, man, that reverse that reverse and transition was crazy. Listen, I was talking to a Minnesota Timberwolves fan before the season even started. This is preseason. And I was like, dude, there's no way you guys didn't get the better end of this deal with Julius and Dante DiVincenzo. I said that. And he's like, come to me in game 30. He said, by game 30, you're going to see why you want Karl Anthony Towns on your team. I owe that man a text, to be honest, right now. I'm going to, as soon as this live stream is done, I got to go text my friend. I'm like, listen, I'm sorry. I don't even know if Julius is going to be on your squad next year, but thank you for Karl Anthony
Trade
Towns, man.
deadline.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. But yeah, no, there's nothing that you can say about Karl Anthony Towns except wow. Every single night he goes out there and just puts on a show. And the biggest thing that I think Knicks fans were a little bit uneasy about with Karl Anthony Towns was like the toughness aspect. There was sort of that notion going around, come playoff time, when it's time to take over a game, can he do it? But listen, everything that he's shown us so far, we clearly have a lot of season left to go. Um, but everything that he's doing right now is undisputable, undeniable at this point. And he's definitely in the MVP consideration. I don't want to jinx the guy, but I mean, this guy's in the MVP ladder as of right now, Nick. So yeah, man, I don't think that there's really much else you can say. He's a walking double-double. I mean, 30 and 13, 30 and 16, whatever it is, he's getting it done for the New York Knicks. Again, I will say I'm gonna keep until we get clarity on this big man situation. I'm still gonna have a little bit of uneasiness to me because the Wizards were getting a little bit more offensive rebounds than I would have liked to seen them get. And that's something that, again, it's the Wizards. Like, I understand, you kind of play down to your opponent just a little bit, and the Knicks took off, it seemed like at the end of the third quarter. It was kind of a close game up until that point, and they just took off. But that's what I worry about down the stretch of the season. To my surprise, they've handled Orlando fairly well. I think Orlando's a little bit beat up and they're kind of injured as well. But at the end of the day, how is that going to hold up over the course of the entire season and going into the playoffs? Is that lack of size? That's the only question mark that I still have, right? That's the only question mark. Because again, you get into a game like last night, the Knicks ended up shooting 34% from three, just over. I mean, if that three ball isn't falling, if you're not playing to that 4 out, 1 in, or 5 out, no in, and the three ball's not falling against a team like Boston, and you're not working them in the paint, right? If that's not an option for you either, I mean, what do you go to? What's the next game plan? So that's the one question that I still have. But again, when we're talking about an 8-game win streak here, as the calendar year turns from 2024 to 2025, I'll let that be for right now. They'll figure it out. We'll figure it out, and let's just ride the hot streak right now, man.
I think that when it comes to the offensive rebounding, the Knicks, well, I guess it's the Knicks defensive rebounding, when they like pay attention to detail, I think they're pretty good at it. I think they have lapses sometimes. And I think, as teams, we play some of these younger, more athletic teams, and especially like that game against Atlanta for the cup where we got eliminated, which really that's when people were just losing their mind. And that's, the last game that we lost coincidentally. I think that the Knicks as a team, they then had, that one game in 8 days. I think they all looked themselves in the mirror, and I think that they were disappointed with themselves with how that went. And I think they've been a little bit better as far as the glass and just the overall spirit and effort since then. And it's not always for 48 minutes. There's times where we have to pick it up. Josh Hart said in his post-game interview last night, sometimes it takes us a little time to get going. And, but they figured it out. Yesterday, they did have 15 offensive rebounds themselves. They gave up 12 to the Wizards. But to your point, a lot of those 12 were early, and it felt like they were getting, too many second chance points. And then the Knicks kind of locked in. And as we know, that game stayed close throughout 3 quarters. But in the 4th quarter, they totally took control. Karl Anthony Towns, it's funny. I have a friend who is from, Minnesota and follows all their sports fans. And he and I have talked about this. And he said that, he thought that Cat was just a great all-around player, but that he lacked a certain amount of dog, and that the pairing with him and Rudy Gobert was horrible, and they were never going to be able to get real value back, and their owners are cheap, and they didn't want to go into that second luxury tax. I think that this, when we look back on it in hindsight, will be looked at as one of the worst trades in history. Minnesota has done this before. We go back. Remember, this is the same team that shipped out Kevin Garnett and Stephon Marbury. Those two should have played together for their entire career in Minnesota. If you were old enough to remember that duo when they were both young, they were fantastic. And now they have taken a player in Karl Anthony Towns and sent him exactly where he needed to go. He comes home to a sense. He grew up about 15 minutes away from where I grew up in central New Jersey. He grew up a Knicks fan. The tweets are there to prove it. And he understands the weight of that orange and blue, and he has taken it and used it to elevate himself. Sam J, she's a comedian, and she was on the podcast with Mello, and she said, I feel like he's one of the first players ever that you've seen that comes to New York, and it's elevated him. It's not, as Mets fans, we know, we've seen it as recently as Francisco Lindor, back to Beltran, and some players never figure it out. But at least that first couple years, a lot of times when guys come to New York, they struggle a little bit with the spotlight that is now put on them. That has made Karl Anthony Towns go to a new level. Now, I think there's a couple things at play here. He went to the Western Conference Finals last year. He outplayed Joker during the playoffs last year. So he was leveling up just himself. He's 7th year in the league. This is around the time that things like this typically happen. As he said, he came into Minnesota a boy and he left a man. But something about him and the Jeff Teagues, all the different podcasters, everybody's saying it. He's been a different guy. Bomani Jones, I've seen all these guys. He's been a different guy since he's come to the Knicks. He's leveled up. And I think some of that is, you got to give credit to Leon Rose for having the vision, seeing what this guy could be. Tibbs, at this point, who doesn't have their best year under Tibbs? Dante DiVincenzo, shell of himself. All of these other guys, from the Julius Randles to the Precious Achiuwas and everybody in between, they all level up when they get to this team. It can't be a coincidence. And also JB and the way that he leads this team and the way that he clearly has made an effort to get guys going. Earlier, it was Karl Anthony Towns when Bridges was struggling. He made an effort to get him going. I think I see him making an effort to get OG going right now when his shot's struggling a little bit. We'll talk. We're going to dive into JB for sure. We'll save the best for last. But I think that Karl Anthony Towns coming over here has been such a just master move. He fits this team to a T. He's a way better defender. He's a way better rebounder than he's ever been in his career, statistically. He's just way better at those things, and he's a way better passer than I ever thought he was. The passing, and I've seen him do some like Hakeem Olajuwon type shit, where he's an absolute threat from every level on the floor. And the thing I love about him is that even when he's not having a great game, that game the other night where he had 11 points, he came in the game late. He's having a terrible, tough game. He sits on the bench longer than he typically does in the fourth quarter, but he comes in the game late. He ends up coming up with like a big rebound and getting an and one. So that's the thing about him is that it's his spirit for the game, his spirit for his teammates, the way he always calls Brunson Cap. And I hate to say it, I got to be real. Like you said, not only was I wrong, but I've made this analogy before. So if you've heard it before, please forgive me. But that means that you're a consistent listener. So I appreciate that. But it's like when you get away from an ex and all of a sudden, once you're not in that spell, all of a sudden you start to see all the different things that were wrong. And you're like, yo, what was I doing? And I was out here just, just overall, just Julius is my guy. Julius is my guy. Julius is my. Come on, man. We've all seen the compilations of some of the stuff that's going on over there in Minnesota. We see the pointing at the guy saying, you get him, when it's actually he that's supposed to get him. We see him dribbling and spinning into oblivion and just not really being a player that is conducive and decisive enough for that championship level basketball on both ends. And I'm on wax saying that I think that Julius Randle is way better than Karl-Anthony Towns. I couldn't have been more wrong. Karl-Anthony Towns is such a far superior basketball player, but he seems like he's a far superior person. He seems like he's a far superior teammate, and the people being around him, it's just lighter in the room and it's just more enjoyable. And to me, that is almost as big as what he can do on the court.
No, I mean, it's very well said. And to add into that, I was going to ask you, do you think that this was extra motivation once he learned that he was going to the Knicks? Do you think it was extra motivation for him to just make it work the second time around with Tom Thibodeau, like in that relationship? Because I think that has everything to do with it as well.
I think the Thibodeau thing. I think the beef between them was overplayed because there's no beef. That's obvious. But I think that yes, second time around with Thibodeau, second time around with the team. Hey man, they just right before. Look, we think about our guys that left and DiVincenzo especially, but also Randall and how emotional this must have been for them getting shipped out right before the season from a team that you felt like, hey, we're running it back. Well, they made it to the Western Conference Finals last year. And now he's looking at it like, yo, y'all basically picked Gobert over me. And so I think that's some motivation right there. You saw he cooked Gobert. I think he was like 10 of 11 against Gobert or something like that when we played against Minnesota. And I just think that you have those motivations plus the motivation of I'm back home. My grandmom's is watching me play for the first time. And he knows that, look, if this goes bad here, now the whole narrative of your career totally changes.
Yep.
Because obviously we know that everybody's watching when you are in the Garden. And in addition to that, as a guy that's from here, if now you got to go shipped out and you got to go, play out in, Indiana or wherever, some bullshit. Nah. So I think that all of those things are motivating factors. Whatever it is, bottle it up, store as much as you can and continue to have it for the rest of your Knicks tenure, because right now he is the starter in the East at center. He is, after Joker, I think the best center in the entire NBA, and I don't even really think it's that close. Miss me with Sabonis. I don't want to hear none of that nonsense. And he's just, it's been a joy to watch him play, man. It's been so much fun, and I continue to watch him blossom and figure out different ways to impact the game. And I think that Tibbs is going to continue to figure out ways to work with him and make sure that he maybe gets away from some of these silly fouls and bullshit like that. And I think that Brunson is continuing to figure out ways to get him ball in spots that he likes. We saw him struggle with that a little bit at the beginning of the season. Now those two, best pick and roll in the game, no question.
I was just getting ready to say, in your post games before earlier this season, I mean, in your recaps, is just like I continuously heard you talk about, where was the pick and roll late in the fourth quarter when the Knicks were dropping some of those games. I remember vividly that game in Houston against a scrappy Rockets team, and that was coming down to the wire, and it was just non-existent. And the same thing, because I think it was back-to-back games where they lost close ones. It was Houston, then Atlanta, and in that part of the season, same thing. And they're figuring it out. They're figuring it out. And like you said, this is all that needs to be said about Karl-Anthony Towns at the end of the day, is that he looks rejuvenated and he looks like a different, unlocked version of himself. And that's everything that Knicks fans wanted and more at this point of the season. There's still a lot of season left to go. And that's kind of my next question, is that with the longevity factor of Karl-Anthony Towns, there have been some injuries undeniable in his career. OG Anunoby, same thing. I mean, you know, are you worried? And this is not to play into the minutes part of it, because at this point, I think we can both genuinely say, right, the Knicks they can be a deep team, but the production off the bench right now is not conducive to them being a deep team. So they're kind of pigeonholed regardless. I mean, not that Tom Thibodeau would change up the way he coaches anyways with the minutes, right? I mean, even if the Knicks were a deep team, his rotation is his rotation. But do you worry about those two guys in particular, you know, as we get to the stretch of the season, and we get closer to maybe like a late March, early April timeframe, is there any worry in the back of your mind about Karl-Anthony Towns and OG Anunoby from like a longevity standpoint of this season?
Absolutely, and that'll never go away. Every time one of those guys lands, I get nervous,
Yeah.
and that's always going to be how it's going to be. But really, truthfully, though, when you look at Cat, right? Cat has had, he's had 5 seasons where he's played at least 74 games. Okay. And then he's had some, tough and somewhat freak injuries in the other ones. OG specifically, I mean, you got an appendectomy in there. There's it doesn't really look like to me that these guys aren't well conditioned. At the end of the day, it really comes down to luck, I think, when it comes to the injury front. And I don't think that playing them 3 or 4 less minutes, because that's the thing that always kills me with people who nitpick about the minutes. It's like, okay, so the guy right now is playing 36 minutes a game. If he's a top tier player, like all of our starters are, you want them playing at least 33, 34 minutes a game, right? So you just want to get like 2 less minutes a game. And yes, there have been some times this year where late in the game, I have been screaming at the TV, call off the dogs, Tom, call off the dogs and get them out. There is some times that's happened, but you know what? You look up in Minnesota, who we were just talking about, against Houston, they were down by 15 with like 3 minutes left to go, and they came back and they won that game. And you lose a couple of those, and you'll be screaming at Tibbs for that. So I think that I would love, like I said, to get somebody who allows us to play OG and Bridges a little bit less. OG, Bridges, and Hart, somebody who can steal a couple of those minutes from them. And then I would love to be able to, just continue to give Cat a day here and there when he feels like he needs it. He's, I think he's missed 2 games this season. If Cat's got a sore knee, sit down, Cat. Sit down for a day. Sit down for a day so we don't lose you for 2 weeks, okay? I'm okay with that. But with those guys, you just got to hold your breath, man. And you just got to hope that, those guys don't end up coming up lame, stepping on a foot or something like that, because at the end of the day, it can happen to anybody. You look at a team like Orlando, they got their 2 best players out with oblique injuries. I don't even see those in the NBA. That's a baseball injury. So you never know what can happen out here, man. You just got to try your best. And I would like to get some of the overall minutes down a little bit. Some of these stats that have been coming out recently, talking about how the different Knicks lead the league in minutes played per game, minutes played overall, they're not fair, because they also have not been injured. So therefore, that total stat, they're going to be very high. Whereas like a guy like Jason Tatum, who's missed a couple games, or even like Towns, is not on that list because they've missed a couple games. Minutes per game wise, I kind of like where we're at right now. If you look at us as far as the league is concerned, Bridges is going to be up there. He's an Iron Man. Not worried about him. Hart is going to be up there. Hart never wants to come off the floor. I'd like to see a few more minutes for OG. There are times in games where OG looks a little bit gassed, where his shot is falling short. Some of that's elbow. Some of that's, him maybe being a little bit fatigued. I'm not sure. But if we could just find a few more minutes for OG, and then with Cat, just, hope and pray, I think we'll be all right. And listen, at the end of the day, when it comes to winning an NBA championship, it's the most important thing, is that when it comes to playoff time and throughout the playoffs, if we can stay healthy. Last year, the Knicks, they fought all the injuries. They were still able to get to game 7 of the second round. And if not, and even with the OG injury, if Josh Hart doesn't strain an abdominal, and then he's never the same for the rest of that series, that was like halfway through game 6, I still think we end up figuring out a way to win that series. And then we get to the Eastern Conference Finals, which, with as injured as we probably would have got waxed. But with all that being said, I just feel like at the end of the day, you just gotta hope, man, when it comes to that. There's only so much that you can do to try and prevent injury. You just gotta, hope that the ball bounces your way at the right time.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, like, you're right. There's only so much you can do without it hindering your regular season, right? I mean, less minutes is gonna probably produce more losses in the regular season, and fans aren't going to be happy about that either. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation for Tom Thibodeau in terms of this actual argument, because that's the only thing that I'm hearing, the naysayers talk about right now is the minutes, the minutes. It'll come back to bite them. We'll see. And I agree with you 100% is that it's just more of a hope thing. And you can't pull these guys off the court. They don't even want to get pulled off the court. So what are we talking about here? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Shout out to my guy Crimes Dad. He's always here in the chat. Says Dante D has been amazing the last 2 games, and he is getting 30 plus minutes now. I did see that Dante had like his best game of the season. I feel for Dante, man. I really do. I can't imagine. We try to act like these guys are robots and they get paid so much
Yeah.
money to play a kid's game. They are human beings. They are people. My guy was out in New York City. He's from not far away in Wilmington, Delaware. He's with his best friends. They're doing photo shoots for GQ days before. And then all of a sudden, right on the eve of training camp, he shipped out to Minnesota. When we played them, my pops was like, yo, what's up with his haircut, man? Like, yo, you could tell like Dante is in his feelings. He's looking gaunt in the face. His fade wasn't that nice. I'm like, yo, he had that New York City barber. Now he got a Minnesota barber, man. Yo, so I feel for him. I know we got to wait a calendar year from the trade, but I feel like he's going to find his way back to the Knicks at some point. But as of right now, I'm happy to see him have some success over there, and we'll see what goes on with that Minnesota team. All us Knicks fans will be keeping an eye on that. But
Let him
really,
catch and shoot.
overall,
Let him catch and shoot in Minnesota, man. That's his bread and butter. That's all I got to
they,
say about that.
the thing is that yes, they are acting as if like, hey, this is how we run our offense, and maybe it's not as good for him. No, you need to utilize a player that is as good as he is, especially when you're fighting to stay over 500 for sure. But to stay focused on our Knicks, yeah, man. Injury wise, you just got to hope for the best. Obviously, these guys definitely seem like they condition themselves well. Tom Thibodeau barely does practice. It seems like our training staff and everything is at least comparable to other training staffs in the league. I'm not going to say it's good or bad, but it's not horrible. There are some years, remember, in recent history where that was the rumor around the Knicks that our training staff was one of the worst,
Right.
post like Mike Saunders. But hey, man, I think that, we just got to hope for the best when it comes to the injuries. But we do need to figure out a way to cut down on some of the those wing stop minutes. I'd like to be able to figure out somebody, whether that be via trade or maybe just to be like getting more comfortable with a guy like Shamit, or maybe it be when Mitch comes back and now Precious can be a little bit more of a backup 4 as opposed to 5, and that can cut into OG and Josh Hart's minutes. I don't know exactly what the formula is, but I do have faith in Thibodeau to figure it out. Now, it is almost a crime that we have gotten this far into this stream without talking about the captain, Mr. 55 points, Mr. Do Everything, Captain Clutch, Mr. Mitty, whatever you want to call him, Jalen Marquise Brunson. What do you think about his season so far? And what did you think about that double nickel that he dropped on the Wizards back on Saturday night?
Listen, this was a guy that everybody was pressing the panic button on as well, that was not a Knicks fan, especially around me. And I'm just like, dude, are we really questioning Jalen Brunson right now? I
Crazy.
mean, I had a couple Wizards fans come up to me and be like, dude, is the league figuring out Jalen Brunson? I said, are you crazy? Are you crazy?
At that time, he was averaging like 24 points instead of 26 with like, 40%, 48% shooting and like 39% from three. And everybody's like worried about him. And he's also getting over 7 assists. It was crazy.
He showed that he was a human for like a stretch of games, and everybody went, insane, and he was still putting up fantastic numbers. But I agree. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, Jalen Brunson is who he is. At this point, uh, getting his teammates involved is awesome, because I feel like he actually has that confidence now, right? And maybe this is the Julius Randle effect too. I don't know. I don't want to, dumb it down to that. But listen, it just seems like he has free reign right now, and it just seems like that tandem of him and Karl Anthony Towns is just simply a better option for him than him and Julius. And I think that's very evident. It's night and day. He seems more comfortable. And he really seems to be that all around point guard that we have always known that he can be. And it's just a blessing for him, I'm sure, to just be able to get in the paint like we know he does very well. Basically, I mean, listen, the footwork, we've talked about this outside of maybe like a Kyrie or I don't know. I think really Kyrie is the only other guy. Who else in this league is matching the footwork of Jalen Brunson, especially of that stature in the paint, surrounded by dudes that are 6'6" and beyond? It's just a work of art. So him being able to create his own shot with ease is fantastic, and he gets his teammates involved, basically automatically as soon as they start crashing in on him in the paint, which is just, I mean, again, 5 out, no win, a team full of shooters catch and shoot. That's Boston Celtics basketball right there, and that's something that the Knicks have replicated, and they're only going to perfect. But yeah, man, it's awesome him being named captain. I'm sure it's a huge deal for him. It's something that this Knicks fan base kind of rallied around as well. I think it's very known that the Knicks haven't had a captain since I forgot the last one, to be honest, at this point. Do you know off the top of your head who the last one was?
Landry Fields.
Exactly. Talk about a throwback there with Landry Fields.
No, actually, I don't know. I don't know if it was Landry Fields. Keep talking. I'll come back to that.
No, but listen, man, at the end of the day, it's been a while since the Knicks had a captain. They held a whole ceremony for him at MSG. Like I said, it's just the culture aspect of this team is something that it seems like it's led by JB at this point. He came in here to this Knicks organization, and he really set that tone. Villanova boys and all that. So I don't think, again, we can talk about the skill sets of these players all day long. Karl Anthony Towns, JB, these guys can hoop. These guys can hoop. But like, I finally feel like this team is one cohesive unit, which is everything. And this is the same thing we talk about the Mets, man, and what went wrong in 2023 and what went right for them in 2024 is the culture that they, foster at this point. So, captain, shout out to the captain. The 55 piece was amazing, was awesome. I would have liked for it to not be in an overtime game against the Wizards, but you know what? We're not going to complain about wins. A win is a win is a win, and we'll take it all day long. But I think that, you know, him scoring at any given level as well, whether it's in the paint, whether it's with the midi as well, or whether it's beyond the arc, is something that, again, you're seeing this be the case for 3 to 4 guys on the court for the Knicks at any given time. We just talked about it with Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart. Karl Anthony Towns can do it too. You know what my most favorite move of any Knicks player is right now is that little fade away from the baseline that Karl Anthony Towns does. But 3 level scoring is awesome. And to have 3 or 4 guys on the court at any given moment that can do that for you is just something that's a breath of fresh air at this point.
Yeah, Cat had that iconic moment with Mo Wagner guarding him where he looked at the ref for the foul and then went ahead and he shot that fadeaway jumper from the baseline in the Garden. I'd like to see more mid-range from Karl Anthony Towns, to be honest. Sometimes when he can't get all the way to the basket, he ends up putting like up that kind of like runner from 8 feet. Just stop, gather yourself and shoot. Nobody's blocking your shot and you're going to hit that all the time. So I think that's something that he could look to improve on. And the last Knicks captain was actually Lance Thomas. So think about
That's
that
right.
for a second. Now it is Jalen Brunson. Another thing that I've thought about recently is when he got named captain this past summer, we should have known right then that Julius was gone. We should have known right then. That should have been a sign right there, And I think that with Brunson, what we've seen is Brunson figures things out. Let's not forget how he started out the playoffs last year. Some of the worst games that he had in a Knick uniform. And then by the end of it, he is being mentioned on lists with no other than Michael Jordan. So Brunson at the beginning of the season, like you said, really the culmination was that Bulls game, that Hawks game, that Rockets game, where we were looking a little bit disjointed with the offense. We weren't wanting to pick and roll as much as we needed to. Brunson was kind of playing the type of ball that he needed to play last year. Well, this team, They are not so ISO dependent. We don't need Brunson to save us and create offense all the time. We have added two players to the starting lineup who are very good at creating offense. And when you put them all together, it's like Voltron. They become this bigger and greater thing because of what all of them can do and how they complement each other. So Brunson has learned from that. His assists are up. He's almost at 8. Last time I checked, it was 7.7. I think he'll be over 8 by the end of the season. The shooting efficiency numbers are coming back, though he has struggled from 3 these last few games, as all of the Knicks have. We've had, not the best 3-point shooting, especially considering we've been number 2 at shooting the 3 in the NBA throughout the season. But yes, in that game, that first game against Washington, as Darlene said, JB straight up put us on his back in that game. He played absolutely fantastic, especially in the second half. And then, we're going back and forth. That game, we could just never get to the point where we pushed ahead and really had enough going on where we could just dominate and get away in that game like we did in this previous game. But Brunson, even when we go down by 5 in under a minute, he just gets an and one, another bucket. We go to overtime. And then he's fantastic in overtime again. He's just been so good, man. He's been so good. And it has been such a joy to have this guy come over to this team and not just play the way that he plays, but also the way that he carries himself on a daily basis. And you can see that permeates throughout the rest of the team. The team takes on the personality of their coach and their best player. You go back and you look at those San Antonio teams. When Duncan is the way that he is and Pop deals with Duncan the way that he does, everybody else got to fall in line. Yep. And this Knicks team, we finally have that leader. I want him to start in the All-Star game. He would be the first Knicks point guard to start in an All-Star game since Walt Clyde Frazier. Do your job. I set an alarm on my phone, so I go on every single day and I vote for my guys. I think that Brunson and Cat should absolutely be starters. I think that there is an argument for OG, Mikhail, and Josh Hart. None of them are going to make it. I think there's an argument for all of them just because of the total players that they are. But typically, as we know, that's not how people get into all-star games. But with there being some injuries, especially those injuries in Orlando, at those wing spots, it's possible. We'll see. So we'll see what ends up how that ends up playing out. I think that we'll definitely get 2. It's just going to be whether or not JB starts. I just think that should be a foregone conclusion, especially if we continue to streak with the record as well. You know that Cleveland, with their type of record, they're going to get at least 2, possibly 3. Boston's going to get at least 2, possibly 3, and then it's going to be the Knicks who get at least 2, possibly 3. But when you look at this team and how it's currently, constructed, you have Brunson as the head of the snake, but as we saw in last night's game, he can have a game where he has 18 points. There's been a few games this year where it's like we're halfway through the third quarter, Brunson hasn't scored, and we're up by 15, which just wasn't even a possibility last season. So this team has definitely become a lot more balanced, and I thought that Brunson took a little bit of time exactly how to figure out how to navigate and really orchestrate all of that, but it seems like he's totally locked in at this point.
And when you take a look at the early struggles and how you were pleading for that pick and roll to just remain intact in the fourth quarter and some of those ugly losses to begin the season, I feel like he was still in that mindset of him needing to just do a little bit too much and take on that ISO ball in the fourth quarter and just get it done himself. Now he just trusts the guys around him. And I probably said this about 4 different times on this podcast in the span of an hour and 2 minutes that we've been live right here. But he trusts the guys. And at this point, you surround him with the best weapons available, and that's what Leon Rose has done, and good things are going to happen because he's going to find those guys, and he doesn't need to. He's still going to be ball dominant. This is Jalen Brunson at the end of the day, right? But he doesn't need to be as ball dominant as sometimes in the past. And again, it helps when you don't really have a guy that you have to sort of, I'm going to say bow down to, but also take into consideration, right? Alongside you, the way he was basically doing, I think, with Julius Randle on the court last season. So yeah, man, at this point, I mean, he's doing just fantastic things. Also in the MVP consideration, I mean, he has to be. And don't try any of this funny business with this All-Star game. The same thing that happened last year with that Tyrese Halliburton crap. But anyways, I don't even want to speak on that anymore. But yeah, man, it's a pleasure to see. JB, I mean, he was rocking his jersey last night at the game. Um, what a breath of fresh air for this organization, and it just insane that the Knicks actually have a solidified point guard at this point, and they're just not rotating a point guard every season. I'm just so happy we're beyond that phase of the New York Knicks.
The days of being stoked about Raymond Felton and Emmanuel Mudiay, those days are thankfully far behind us. Shout to my guy, Agent Super Argo. Salute, gentlemen, and the chat. Yes, sir. Salute to you as well. And he also says, please hit that thumbs up button and support the channel very much. Please go down into the bio. Find the link to CP's channel, CPNY Sports. Follow him here on YouTube. Follow him over on X, on Instagram. He's everywhere. And another great comment by my man Argo. The best problem the Knicks have ever had was having so many players in which anyone can go off on any given night. That is detailed by the Knicks having 4 players score 40 points before January 1st, which is the first time that has ever happened in NBA history. And it just shows what this team can be. We have 3 guys that can create. We have really 4 guys that can create if you want to add Josh Hart into that mix. And then you have OG, who I don't want a ton of dribbles out of OG, but you know he can get off in any given moment. And Brunson, one of the things I've seen out of him is that when he gets into that lane, he jumps up in the air, and if guys are collapsing on him, he's so good at spraying that ball out into the corners. And whether it's Bridges, his release and his height and his length, he can catch it right here. I love the fact that he can catch it right here. He doesn't have to reload up. He just goes straight up and into the shot. I think that that's a fantastic aspect of him and his ability to be able to get off that deep shot. And yes, that's a very good point by you, Argo. And also, especially when it comes to the ends of games, I commented on somebody's page recently on X where they were like, well, you know, who at the end of games, who's your go-to person? And that's the thing that's great is that it's whoever's got it going. I've seen a couple times, and this is one of the other things that I love about the maturation of Jalen Brunson. The game against San Antonio, towards the end, he was purposely just running a screen and roll with him and Cat at the top, and then he was having and Bridges was coming on the curl. He was giving Bridges the ball with a head of steam coming around there, and then Cat was setting a second screen for Bridges, and now Bridges is getting in against Wimby, and you could see that off either foot. That as we know, he was killing them with that shot throughout that entire game, but especially down the stretch in the waning moments. So I think that little bit of change that we have and the ability to adapt on the fly, I think that says something about Tibbs. One of they got to talk about the minutes now because they can't talk about how he's not a good offensive coach anymore because we have the second best offense in the league, number 1 offensive rating last I checked. And then when you want to have a guy like Bridges being able to attack, and then last night I saw towards the end of the game, there was one play where we got up, we, got into the offense a little bit. Things weren't, there wasn't much going for JB. And he called Josh Hart up to the top, passed it to him, directed Cat over to him, like, go set him a screen. You two run a screen and roll, and let me just go stand over here. I think being able to get Brunson off the ball like that more is going to be good for him, good for his longevity, making him not have to just, get knocked to the floor so much and have to deal with so much responsibility. And I think that him directing them and just, kind of being a traffic director out there and saying, hey, you over here, you do that. You've got it going. You've been killing it tonight, Josh. And Kat, you've got it going as well. So let's put you on a screen and roll and see what happens. What ends up happening is a dunk for Kat off a beautiful pass from Josh Hart, one of his 10 assists in his 23-point, 15 rebound, 10 assist, triple-double last night. So I think that all of these things that we're seeing from JB are just him continuing to grow. And I think that this more balanced team is going to allow him to be more effective when he really has to, like in that 55-point game, but not have that burden to do heroic things on a nightly basis.
Unselfish basketball is beautiful, isn't it? I think that's what we're starting to learn here. But listen, at this point, one thing that I was going to say about, and this is just like going back to the points that we've been talking about all live stream long, is that this cohesive unit of this team. Remember when OG Anunoby, was a free agent, and everyone was thinking, oh, maybe Indiana, he goes back to Indiana, and they offer him the bag, and he goes back with Pascal Siakam. And they're like, there was rumors. untrue rumors. These are just, speculation that Knicks fans, especially the pessimistic Knicks fans, wanted to spew, was that OG Anunoby never wanted to be here. He doesn't like the team. He doesn't like the guys. He doesn't vibe well with them. OG Anunoby is having probably the most fun and most like personality, right? Because like OG's is cool as a cucumber, right? We're seeing this guy's personality come out now, and that's just a testament to how comfortable he actually feels. And I think that if he is, these post game interviews, grabbing the mic, everyone's behind him. Cat's like, grab the mic,
Did you
grab the
see his
mic.
reaction to Precious's dunk the other day?
I didn't see that reaction.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Now, watch the replay and look at the bench when it's about it's about as much emotion you'll ever see out of OG.
I love it, man. Listen, it's every one of these guys, man. It's every one of these guys. The personalities are coming out. Everyone wants to say, stop podcasting, stop with the roommates podcast. Come on, man. These guys are human at the end of the day. They're not robots. Like, miss me with all that. I mean, listen, when you're losing, fans will find anything to poke at, and we know that, especially within this Knicks fan base. But these guys are humans at the end of the day, and it's just a pleasure to watch them. Just be boys, right, on and off the court. I mean, that's just what it is at this point. So love the production. Love the 8-game win streak. This Knicks team is special, man. This Knicks team is special, and it's only the beginning because when we haven't even talked about in this live stream, is that there is a championship window now for the New York Knicks where they have their core for numerous years. And
Hopefully.
yeah, there's going to be an extension on the horizon, and there's going to be additional pieces. Whether Dante DiVincenzo makes his way back to New York at some point or not, they've got the foundation and they're going to have this nucleus hopefully for a little bit. So clock started. Championship window is now. The Knicks are contenders, and it's going to be a fun ride, man.
Yeah, well, so let's look forward a little bit because, as Agent Super Argo was saying in the chat, the ultimate measuring stick for this team, in my opinion, is this Friday against OKC. A lot of people have been circling that. We still got to take care of business on New Year's Day against the Jazz, who beat us. They embarrassed us when we went to Utah. So hopefully we take care of that business. That means that we would be winners of 9 straight. That's a nationally televised game on Friday against the best team in the West. So there will be a lot of hype around it. And it's going to be on the road, and we will be seeing our familiar friend Isaiah Hartenstein. So do you feel like that game is a true measuring stick? And is it something that you look at to kind of figure out where this Knicks team is?
Yeah, I think so. I think so at this point. Maybe not OKC in particular, but like we said before, like the whole month of January when things get a little bit tough, right? How do they stack up against is Boston on the schedule? I haven't even taken a look at the month of January, but I don't think Boston's on the schedule if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, just this whole entire stretch. But I think OKC, as Agent is saying, is definitely a measuring stick. And there's gonna be some maybe not chippiness, right? Maybe not chippiness, but there's going to be a fire between that matchup, right? I'm sure iHeart's going to be on Cat, and these guys are going to go at each other, and it's going to be a beautiful thing to watch. I'm going to be tuned in. You said nationally televised. The whole world's going to be tuned in, and I think that that's where Cat thrives, man. We've been talking about these games, especially against Minnesota. When things matter, outside of just winning the game, when there's a storyline to go along with it, you know, Cat feeds off of that. He feeds off of that, and he comes up big. And that's what I'm expecting against Oklahoma City. So I can't wait. That's a good, fantastic. It's not even good anymore. Like that rebuild that they've gone through over the past couple of seasons has been phenomenal. They are a real force in the league right now, and they are still a young team, right? They're hungry, and same thing with the Rockets. Spurs maybe not so much. They got a little bit of more work to do, but we're starting to see these teams, right? And you said it, and we've said it. When the Knicks, you know, they're circled on the calendar for these opposing teams. The Knicks are going to get everybody's best. They can't sleep anymore, right? This is not just, oh, we're going to go into Washington and steamroll them. No, those guys are, Koulibaly, 20 years old. Keyshawn George, 21 years old. These guys got something to play for, and they know the spotlight is on them, just as it is the New York Knicks, just by stepping out onto the court. So it's a blessing and a curse if you're the New York Knicks, but that's what comes with being a championship contender. So I'm excited. I think it is a measuring stick. I think it's a good comment, and we'll see how it goes. But I expect Cat and the rest of the guys to be up to the task. All I'm going to say is that the boards. Just work hard on the boards. We know how iHeart is. He's going to work hard on the boards, and just limit the offensive rebounds, please. That's what I'll say.
Boston and Cleveland, we don't see them until February. I'm just looking at
Okay.
it, and we got a little swing in February where it's going to be, we got Memphis, we got this is the end. This is starting January 27th. We got Memphis, Denver, Lakers, Houston, at Toronto, but then we have Boston, Indiana, Atlanta, and then we get Chicago, and then we get Cleveland, then Boston again. And then Philly, and
That's a
then
stretch,
Memphis.
man.
Damn, yeah,
You
that's going to be a stretch right there. And so in this game that we play here on next Friday against the Thunder, I think about iHeart and his ability to be able to guard Embiid last year, or his lack of ability to be able to guard Embiid. And I think that Cat is going to give him some problems. And I think that offensively, iHeart's not the type of player that is going to get Cat into that foul trouble, which we see that sometimes limit his ability to not only guard the rim, but stay on the floor. So I think that center wise, we're going to really have an advantage there. And we're going to see, what iHeart can do when he has to guard one of these really talented offensive centers, which is not that many of them in the league anymore, but we definitely have one over in orange and blue now. And I think that also there has to be some sort of level of, rivalry kind of building between Brunson and SGA, just as far as being the two best point guards in the league. And I think that now when we've played OKC before, their wings and they come at you in waves. I mean, Williams is a borderline all-star player. They got a lot of good wings over there, but I think now that we have Bridges and now that we have OG to deploy on those wings, I think it's going to be a much more even matchup. So they're a very good team. They've been killing it over there. So it's really interesting to see how things are going to go. I got something right here where hold on, where's my guy Argo? He's talking to UCP. It says apparently iHeart has been saying things towards Brunson being not as good as SGA. That's the report on some channels. Okay, I saw the exact quotes. I actually went and watched it because I didn't want it to be taken out of context. Basically, all that Isaiah Hartenstein said was that with him and Brunson, it was a little bit more of like a pick and roll where they were working together. So he was trying his best to always get him open. And he said with SGA and the offense that they run, it's more of a just kind of get out of the way and let him do his thing. I don't really take that as a dig. I don't think that iHeart has any tough feelings or anything like that. In fact, if the Knicks could have offered him more money, they probably would have kept him. It just came down to a silly rule, in my opinion, where we weren't able to keep him on the squad. And honestly, as my guy Agent Super Argo is saying, we kind of got to thank iHeart for moving on for the Knicks, because if he didn't leave, we probably wouldn't have made the move for Cat. You're absolutely right on that. That
X.
is a great take, because we probably would have run it back, and the team with
Yep.
iHeart and with also Julius and no Cat, it's a worse team. So yeah, hey, I'm glad that OKC offered him that bag and that he was able to go over there and get that money and then allow us to be able to pivot. So that worked out for the Knicks in the long run for sure. I don't think that he has any sort of ill will to these guys. He won't pull a Julius and run off the floor after the game and not shake hands if they
Oh
lose.
man,
Man, that was such poor form by Jew, man.
that's
This guy
cold,
Brunson's always
bro.
had your back, and then you bounce on the post game too. You leave out of the locker room real quick on the post game too, and then that just forces all of your teammates to answer the questions that people were going to ask you. So just another example of him just being immature and somewhat petulant. But let's get back and focus on the Knicks, man. I think that this game against OKC is big, and as you said, this month is going to be big. We really got to lock in, and we got to show that this isn't us just stacking up wins against some bum teams. We got to come out here now. A lot of them are going to be at the Garden, take care of home court, and get some wins. And if we come out of this month, we have another good month back to back, and we're probably not going to go 12-2. But if we can stay a few games over 500 at least in this month, especially with how tough it's supposed to be, because February is going to be tough as well. And then you just start to try to hope that you get everybody healthy and going on all cylinders as we get into March and April.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And Argo, that's a fantastic comment. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. If there's iHeart on this team, there's no Cat. So that's a great comment. And I was going to ask you. I mean, you kind of answered the question too, and I didn't think that was the case either. But I was kind of wondering if there was any sort of maybe tough feelings for Hart in terms of playing his former team with the way that it played out. But I don't really think so.
We wanted him
I
back.
genuinely think,
We offered him as
yeah,
much money as we possibly could. All of
yeah, yeah.
all the reports are that all the Knicks were all saying to him, begging him to like, yo, take less money, let's run it back, we'll figure it out, whatever. But like, hey, what are you going to do? I understand. Listen, I don't begrudge
This is
him
this
going and getting
decision
his
for sure.
bag. I don't begrudge him going and doing that. I was a little bit, I wish that I was trying to figure out all the different reasons why he should have stayed when he did decide to take that deal. Things are going well for them over there. They're a very good team, and that's with them losing their number 2 pick, Chet Holmgren from a couple years ago. That's supposed to be, a key piece. He's out with the hip. That guy's so skinny. I feel like he's always going to be hurt. But yeah, man, I don't begrudge them at all. I don't begrudge him at all, and I think that feeling is mutual. I don't think Iheart feels that way about the Knicks. He can't. They offered him as much. They tried their best.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be good. Listen, man, this is only the start of I'm sure not only the content, but just also this ride that we're about to embark on. Um Last year, I guess we could have been saying that for since last couple seasons has been a little bit of a taste of what's to come. But like I just mentioned a couple days ago, a couple of minutes ago, the championship window is now. So got to get it done. I'm just super happy with the way that this has all evolved. When you take a look at holistically how the Knicks have transformed, from the RJ Barrett days and Julius Randle, right? And them coming into MSG and then them now phasing out. Just like do you I know you do and I know I do, but I just hope Knicks fans, regardless of what they say about this team and this organization, at least just every once in a while, step back and just take a look at the methodicalness of Leon Rose and what he's done to transform. It's like every move, there's a method to the madness. Even if you can't see it up front, even if you question it up front, there's a method to that guy's madness. And I'm super grateful for it at this point.
The only total miss he's had is Kemba.
Yes.
Because even
Yep.
Fournier, you can't say is a total miss because his contract ended up being valuable when it came to making trades. So at the end of the day, Leon don't miss. He moves in silence. We don't hear about that's another thing. Whenever I hear a lot of these rumors, I start to think to myself, well, this ain't true. Because when it happens with Leon, it happens out of nowhere. But so obviously we just couldn't be more lucky. I wonder if Leon Rose knows anything about football. Maybe he could be the general manager for the Jets as well. But at this point, man, hey, this guy, he's just absolutely crushing it on every single deal that he does. He does not miss. And Agent Super Argo, thank you for all the engagement today, man. Really appreciate it. Question: who has the longest winning streak in the NBA thus far? I looked it up, and that is the Thunder. They had an 11-game run. Now the Knicks are currently at 8. We win our 9th against Utah. We win our 10th against the Thunder, and now all of a sudden we're 1 game away from tying that. So that is possibly in the Knicks' future. Yeah, man. First and foremost, take care of business against Utah. They only have 7 wins on the season. Lauri Markkanen always kills us. Always kills us. Can we figure out something to do with Lauri Markkanen, please? And hopefully we can get that dub, show the entire league that we are definitely for real, show ourselves that we are definitely for real, and continue to ascend and continue to keep this streak going. We have been on now for over an hour and 20 minutes. CP, man, I appreciate you coming on so much. Again, please go down into the description. Make sure you subscribe to all his channels. If it's Mets, if you're a Mets fan and you're not subscribed to CP, I don't know what you're doing. He's one of the leaders in that space, absolutely. And yeah, man. Anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
No, man, I appreciate you having me on. Great Knicks content. I appreciate it. The discussion is always fun. It's always lively. This team gives us something to talk about on a daily basis at this point, which is awesome. And it's usually good, and let's hope that it continues to be good. So appreciate everybody in the chat. Super fun conversation. Appreciate all the support. And first and foremost, have a safe and happy New Year's. And new calendar year turns over, and same Knicks squad. Get it done. There's one goal, and that's to get that banner, man. The most important banner. So let's do it.
Absolutely. Definitely appreciate you coming on. At always appreciate all of the interaction in the chat. If you're on the replay, gang, definitely give some comments. Knicks, they will be against the Utah Jazz at home on New Year's Day, trying to get a dub. It's been a very good ending to the year. Let's hope that 2025 is even better than 2024, which has been one of the better years in recent Knicks history. Hey, man, we got a squad. We got a coach. We got a front office. We got the best fan base in sports, drowning out the Wizards fans in the nation's capital last night. CP amongst them in there making noise, I am sure. Hey, man, it's been Nick on Knicks.